with this presentation, we're going to hit several different things. It's kind of a combination, almost like a presentation beef stew of just throwing several things together and hit several different highlights and keep rolling. But one of the things I wanted to show to you is looking at the commercial bull market and where our breed fits within the region that we call home and is so important to this breed. We're going to talk about heterosis and hybrid vigor and the impact that it has on cattle. As shorthorn breeders, we need to know this, and it needs to be important to us because, let's face it, that's a piece of the puzzle that we need to be a part of. And as that is a piece of what we do and what we need to look at, being able to use it usefully and help our customers do the same thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about some design crossbreeding plans to try to help you improve your customers' ability to utilize shorthorn genetics and utilize crossbreeding in their herds. And then we're going to look at it a little bit from a mathematical standpoint. You know, we're getting dangerous here we're combining data as almost a marketing tool, but we need to sell these things and we need to help our producers be able to sell these things. So we're going to get dangerous and blur that line between data and marketing. So as we look at, I'm going to show you some data on the bull market in the Midwestern United States. What you're going to see is 2 years worth of sale data. What I did is I went to respective breed websites and pulled as many sale reports from the state area that you'll see in a minute as it's defined, and just compiled that all together over 2023 and 24, looking at these 4 breeds. Shorthorn, Angus, Hereford, and Simmental cattle in this geographical region. Why did I pick this region? It's the states that we have shorthorn bull sales in. It's the state where the shorthorns are found the most in this country, and it's also the state where we're sitting, our host state here. We include Kentucky as a large cow state, and B, this is, as we're here at this meeting, it feels relevant to include the state of Kentucky to this discussion. Could have gone with a lot bigger area if you wanted to include some higher cow-calf states. There's only so many hours that I can spend clicking on Angus sale reports and Hereford sale reports to try to pull this stuff together. I'm not going to go through every little point of this. You can read and see how things are going on these slides. But for the shorthorn data, 750 bulls in reported sales over the last couple years. Average price just shy of $5,700. Pretty solid information here in this current market. We're doing a pretty good job. We shift into the Angus cattle. Obviously, volume is certainly an advantage that they're going to have over any of us. 400 sales in the last 2 years compared to 15 shorthorn sales, higher price, more bulls. It's just the nature of the beast. There's just a lot more of them out there. And the Hereford breed in the same region, not near as many sales, not near as many bulls, very similar price point to the Angus. And the average Hereford sale, size-wise, in that geographic region we defined, very similar to the shorthorn. Now, granted, that region is not a Hereford hotbed by any means. That is just not a region where the most prominent of Herefords are located, but you can see still 75 sales in that region over the 2-year period. And then finally the Simmental, more sales, more bulls. We hit a region that is got some pretty prominent Simmental breeders selling a lot of bulls. As I was putting this together, I was surprised at how many Simmental bulls you see in that area of the country, but you start looking at the list of the different Simmental breeders, and some of the who's hit there in the Dakotas, Minnesota, that region of the country, and you could see a average Simmental bull in the last 2 years, $6,800. If we added up the number of bulls sold between those 4 breeds and then parcel it out into percentages, 76% of the bulls in those 4 slides were Angus bulls. And then you see the Simmental and Hereford and Shorthorn percentages that follow there behind. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's an Angus bull in every corner, and that's the case in just about anywhere you want to go. If we'd included Colorado, Nebraska, Wyoming, Montana, this pie would be basically black, and everybody'd have that little sliver at the end. It's the Angus bulls they're everywhere. As we look at it, just summarize, put everybody on one slide. You see the differences in volume and price. And one thing that sticks out to me is that the price of the Shorthorn bull is cheaper. Now, the why of that could be another long discussion that I'm not sure if we even have the answer to, but I think it's something that could also work in our advantage as we go further in this discussion, and just as we think about things. That's something that we don't want to say being cheaper is our advantage, but as we heard Troy say, in the state of Tennessee, cheaper usually plays to your advantage. But there are some ways we can look at this that, yes, we're not selling quite as expensive of a bull, but there's some things we can do that those higher cost bulls aren't doing as well. So the conclusions that I come to, and hope that you come to from looking at this data set, if you didn't realize how big of a business the commercial bull deal is in this country, hopefully this kind of helps drive that point across. And the first thing that a lot of people look at is see those Angus numbers and think, holy crap, how do we compete with that? Well, I'm not sure we really need to worry about competing directly with our 750 bulls to 30-some thousand. I don't think that's the competition you want to fight. I think we need to worry more about how are we going to make those 750 the best damn bulls we can make, as opposed to why are we worried about the 30,000 bulls that are already out there in a different breed. And that's where the opportunity comes in. When 76% of the bulls that have been sold are Angus bulls, there's a lot of Angus sire daughters that need breeding somewhere. And that's where the opportunity comes for the non-Angus breeds, and in particular for us as Shorthorn folks. And that opportunity comes to us in the form of heterosis, or you might have heard it referred to as hybrid vigor. Either way, same thing, fancy word versus common word. The book definition, or Google definition, I guess is more appropriate as we go through this, was the tendency of the crossbred individual to show qualities superior to those of their parents. If we cross 2 animals, we're expecting an improvement in their performance, as opposed to if we breed 2 animals of the same breed, we go with the 2 breed route and crossbreed, we expect that improvement in performance. So all traits that are a part of beef cattle performance are impacted in some way, shape, or form by heterosis. Whether it's our actual weights across the scale, fertility, anything you could think of, hybrid vigor has an impact on it in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's, I know there's studies done about health in crossbred calves versus straight breds, and there is an impact from hybrid vigor across the gamut of what we do in this business. So there's been plenty of work done, and I'm pulling from some oldish information from Dr. Spangler on the impacts of heterosis on specific traits here. But as far as in an individual calf, if we expect an increase in weaning weight by 4% because of hybrid vigor, that doesn't just magically show up after the calf hits the ground. We're probably going to make the calf a little bit bigger at birth. It's the data and the work that they did, crossbred calf was 2% heavier than a straight bred. But then as we go on to weaning, 4% increase in their growth rate. As we look at it from a working cow, from the female perspective, the same information and the same work, the increase in fertility, the increase in weaning weight that cow produces, her ability to stay in the herd longer. All those things are significant impacts that you pick up simply through crossbreeding. Just as simple as turning out a bull that's not the same breed as your customer's cows are. And cumulative weaning weight produced over time is going to add up pretty quick. It's, if your cow stays in the herd till she's 6-7 years old and you've increased her production each year by 4%, before long you have produced significantly more pounds than you might have would have had her in a straight breeding program. So you've probably heard this before, but it bears saying again, a lot of our lower heritability traits, the traits that are harder to make progress on with genetic selection, are the ones that are improved the most via heterosis implementation and hybrid vigor. So maternal abilities and reproductive traits, health and longevity, those are the kind of things it's harder for us to make genetic selection for and improve upon. But we can see a greater improvement in those due in part to the effects of heterosis and hybrid vigor. And that is why, in my opinion, that the crossbred cow and the ability to produce the crossbred cow is where shorthorn genetics can certainly shine and play a role going forward. So we'll look at a few crossbreeding plans. Now, plan is the key word. It's not just throw the bull out there and hope for the best. There's lots of different methods and mechanisms for crossbreeding plans. I could have thrown in about 10 different slides of different ways you can do this. But a crossbreeding system and a crossbreeding plan, it can be helpful, but it can also be a little bit confusing and challenging to work through. Depending on your goal and what you're trying to do and your resources, there's a vast array of systems that are out there and already put together. You just kind of have to plug and play the cattle breeds of choice to make it work, that people have drawn up that can help incorporate this heterosis into a commercial breeding program. First one we're going to look at this 2-breed rotational program. So in pasture A, we're going to breed A. We're always going to go with shorthorn as breed A, first letter in the alphabet. So you're breeding a shorthorn bull to a set of cows in pasture A. The replacement daughters you're keeping, they're going over to pasture B to be bred to a different breed of bull. And in turn, that bull in pasture B, his daughters, they're coming over to the shorthorn bull. And this just keeps going on and on for as long as you want to continue the program. The ones you don't keep, obviously your market, your steers, and your non-replacement heifers out of the system. So an advantage is you're able to produce crossbred calves every generation, but I'm going to ask it as a question instead of just saying it, but as you look at that, what are maybe a couple of drawbacks or disadvantages to this type of system?
Pasture A system, it's going to be hard because you can't control. You may have daughters running with their dams. Now they're getting bred by the same breed, so you have to have a lot of pastures to keep that.
Pasture limitation is the first one that comes to mind when I look at it too, Rick. As we heard Troy say earlier, the typical commercial cow herd in Tennessee is 30 head, 1 bull. Well, now you've got to have 2 pastures and 2 bulls. Some folks are not going to be willing to do that. That's certainly a limitation to a system like this, and many crossbreeding systems is the pasture lack of pasture availability.
Are you getting a new bull every year, or are you line breeding at that point? You go back to the shorthorn.
I think you can. So when you send the daughters to the other pasture, you buy yourself a little bit of time. You're not going to have to flip him over every year, but it's not going to be long that daughters are coming back, and you're going to have to. You can keep your breed of bull, but you got to go find another one, and that is certainly a drawback to it as well. When I look at this system, it's if you do it several turns. So as we look at it right here, this is the very beginning. We're going to send our 50% shorthorn replacement heifers over, breed them to bull B. Then we're going to send back what'll now be 50% of breed B quarter blood shorthorn females, breed them a different shorthorn bull, like you said, Shelby. We've swapped our bull out, but we're going to breed them to a different shorthorn bull, and now we're sending back 5/8 bloods to the other side, and our breed percentages are going to just be fluid. You don't keep your half blood if you continue with this system more than 2 turns. A 2-breed rotational system that is probably simpler. Instead of the 2 pastures, just every few years swap your bull breed. You know, if you've got a shorthorn bull until you keep heifers out of him until his daughters are ready to breed, and then you go get a different breed of bull. You see the same limitation in my mind as far as breed makeup of the cows is going to be fluid and changing often, but it eliminates the issue as far as having to have multiple pastures set up. So you can take advantage of hybrid vigor by swapping your bull breeds, but with anything, there's going to be that drawback of, you know, before long, my breed percentages are kind of wonky. I don't have a uniform set of cows when it comes to breed type. So we move here to a strictly terminal crossbreeding program where in large print it talks about purchasing your replacement heifers. In theory, you could go make F1 Shorthorn Angus females and then breed them to a terminal sire. We'll say a Charolais bull, breed all those F1s to Charolais and sell every calf. Don't keep a Charolais sired heifer. It's a strictly terminal, send them all out the door kind of deal. And with that, you can keep your cow herd makeup pretty similar, but then you run into the limitation of you either are buying replacement females all the time, or if you want to make your own F1s, you still have the pasture limitation of you've got to be running essentially 2 herds to be making your females to go into this system from a different set of cows. Now this is the fun one. It's a combination of everything we've talked about all into one. So if we think about what Troy was telling us as far as herd size and the capabilities of many commercial producers, unfortunately this one, you've got to be a large scale commercial producer for this to be feasible, which is unfortunate that is the case, but that's just the reality of it. You can have a rotational system on your replacement female side. Like the first slide we looked at where we were sending shorthorn sired females over to the breed B pasture and vice versa and keep doing that until the cows get older, whether that's 4 or 5 years old, put them into a strictly terminal system at that point. And from that branch, you can send everything down the road, just like we talked about with the other terminal system. Now, your ability to capitalize on hybrid vigor and heterosis is really good with a system like this, but unfortunately, the practicality of it, there's only so much you can do. You've got to be a multiple 100 cow operator with a lot of resources to be able to try to effectively put a system like this into place. But hopefully all of you find that customer that is a multi-100 cow commercial operator that you can plug your genetics into this kind of program and watch them be successful with it. So anybody that's talked to me more than 2 minutes knows I like math, so we're going to do some math here for a little bit. And in this example, we've got 200 commercial Angus cows that we are going to choose to put shorthorn bulls on them for the very first time. So the reason we're doing that is there's no shorthorn in these things. They are going to be true F1 animals. For the sake of easy math, we're going to assume that these calves were raised in God's pasture. All of them stayed healthy. We had a perfect 50% calf crop, and we were lucky enough that our average weights are right at 500 pounds. So in this system, the steers are all being sold at weaning at 500 pounds, and we're to keep the heifers to breed, and then you can either, in this situation, either sell them or keep them and put them back into the cow herd. Either way you want to look at it. But in this case, we're going to keep them because we want to look at the maternal effects of hybrid vigor. So these shorthorn bulls that we're bringing in, their genetic potential tells us, again, for the sake of simplicity, is just trying to get the point across. We expect that their calves are supposed to weigh 500 pounds if we were breeding them as straight shorthorns. So as we look at those steer calves, earlier we had the mention of the 4% increase in weaning weight based on the impacts of hybrid vigor. So those 100 F1 steer calves, based on that impact, we're looking at what would have been 500 pound straight bred calves. We should be averaging 520 now, just by changing our bull breed and utilizing crossbreeding. That additional 20 pounds a calf adds up in this situation. It's like putting 4 extra steers on the truck. We look at market conditions right now, and in the past, a five weight calf in the state of Iowa last year, you can see the numbers there, that based on these historical averages, and last year that added 20 pounds, it's worth 40 to almost 55 bucks a head. You look at that over 100 calves, significant money. So we look at that difference and the additional revenue that we can generate, and we can do it by buying a bull that back 15 slides ago was 1,500 bucks cheaper. How quickly does that shorthorn bull investment pay for itself in a situation like this? We wanted to look at the maternal effects of hybrid vigor, so we kept those 100 heifers. We decided to breed them all. And so the increased breeding rate of a crossbred female, that 4% impact, that gives us an additional 3 heifers to choose from. 3 more breds to either put back in the herd and breed, or if you want to put together a set of awesome black females that are half shorthorn or blue roans, either one, you'd have an additional 3 of them to pick from when you want to send those heifers to a marketing opportunity. Those keeper heifers become cows, the added longevity of the crossbred cow. If you go out here and look at the booth, there's one of those pieces of it. There's a slide talking about the added longevity piece of the crossbred cow, some Colorado State work that was done. And also, from what we showed earlier, a 16% impact because of hybrid vigor and heterosis. On a 6-7-year-old cow, that 16% increase is 1 more calf. And if we take the dollar figures we looked at for that 1 calf on the previous slide, that female's made you, or generated another 1,000 plus, almost 1,400 bucks, just by the advantages of being a crossbred female that stays in your herd longer. And as we looked at those slides of the possible systems where you take the F1 female and put her in a terminal system, you breed her to a high-powered terminal bull. It's of a different breed from the Shorthorn Angus F1, and you're going to generate even more additional pounds at market for someone that is willing to go the route of going strictly terminal on their calf crop. And it's no secret to any of you, cows that can produce more pay for themselves quicker. Lord knows right now it's not cheap to get any of them to pay for themselves, so the ones that can do it faster, we like those girls a little bit better. So the take-home message, or the go get on the bus and tell your bus buddy about message, because they're across the hall. The commercial cattlemen really can't afford not to crossbreed. I know sometimes, I strongly believe in that. I know Troy preaches that gospel religiously, and you feel like you're bashing your head against the wall. But when you start looking at things, it's really hard to tell a commercial guy that it's hard for you not to crossbreed unless you are trying to be a purebred seed stock producer. We can earn a place in these systems and in the industry by producing the right kind of cattle. I know that's a vague term, but we all have those customers that will we can learn from them what the right kind of cattle is, and making a concerted effort to continue to produce those cattle so that we don't run them off. We have the opportunity there. When you look at that slide where 76% of the bulls sold in that 10-state region are of one breed, there's an opportunity for everybody else to go breed their daughters. And it's our responsibility as the seed stock producer to educate our customers, to provide them with information like what I shared with you. That was kind of the point of putting this together. Is you've got somebody standing in the bull lot looking at possibly buying a new shorthorn bull, or if they're on the fence, it's like, if you put these shorthorn females back in your herd, the increase in longevity of an F1 shorthorn female, or if you want to add a few more pounds to your steer calves, this is what you can value by using a shorthorn bull. It's our responsibility as the seed stock producer to educate our customer and help them to do this and not be a detriment to what they're trying to accomplish. Well, it's our responsibility, and Troy's. We count on you. We need your help as the master educator. But okay, I have reached the end of my journey. We'll take questions or discussion until I think the buses are planning to leave at 2:30. So we've got a few minutes to hang out for a bit before we load the buses and head to Boyd's for our afternoon and evening festivities.
Not bad for a cheap version.
What would be so neat is if you could, how the Lim Flex, Black Simmentals, all those carry a percent of Angus. It would be so good if you could quantify the difference that like a shorthorn bull offered to a black cow base in terms of heterosis versus what a black composite breed. And I know there's some of them would really shudder if I described it that way, but that's what they are. What difference in heterosis they would offer. I know that's hard to quantify, but it would be interesting if the guy could ever put their finger on that.
You're right on both things you said, Rick. It would be very interesting to try to accomplish, and it would also be pretty difficult to pull that piece together just right, because you look at the Simmental composite can be anywhere from 1/4 to 3/4 and anything in between, and that just the math of it is so different from bull to bull that, I mean, you get an F1 Sim Angus, you can kind of do the math fairly straightforward as to, I mean, you're getting half the hybrid vigor of what you would get Simmental or Angus back on a Angus cow. But then you get in all the other percentage composites and it could be very, very challenging.
To that slide where that final crossbreeding, I truly believe that's where the commercial cow herd is going to end up in the next 20 years. Where you're going to have producers that are strictly terminal producers, and then there's going to be the people making the replacement females. And breed part of that, you can shift that in which way you want to go, but I see that coming.
I think you were about to head down this path, Troy, but the breeds that have strayed or stayed away from having a composite component, that have stayed on a purebred path, those are the breeds that have the advantage from a heterosis standpoint. So
and a complementarity standpoint to that too, right? Which is, I think, what you're talking about, right? We have these breeds that can do everything or want to try and do everything, but in a situation like that where I think you need to specialize a little bit more, if you state the path as a purebred breed, you're better positioned to be a strength in a crossbreeding system like Matt was talking about, for sure.
So Matt, you went through a great presentation, but how do we make sure we're one of the 3 breeds? What do we need to do?
Obviously keep making them good, and I think that's a thing that we have to think about, whole group, how we're going to get there, but B, it's an individual attack as well. And how do it's the bull customers you've got, we got to keep them. And I don't know if I know the right answer on how we grow or how you expand that, other than we got got to keep our nose to the grindstone as far as making the right kind and finding a way to prove ourselves, which is the challenge. We've talked about data all morning and pulling that together, whether it's like Chip mentioned. So he didn't go in depth on it, but since we have a little bit of time, I'll hit it right quick. The IGS through Simmental has a program where you can enroll a commercial cow herd and run a genetic evaluation. And I believe the cost is, I think it's $500 annually, where you can enroll all your commercial cows or your customers' cows, submit their data, and get information back in a genetic evaluation on that set of cows. And so as Chip was talking about finding your top couple customers and trying to get them involved, that is one way to get that data, where if you've got a new guy walk in the bull lot, you can say, hey, Billy has been using my bulls for 10 years. This is what they've done for him.